Hello everybody. We'll see if this works. I'm recording this in my mother's office down in southwest Missouri. As you guys saw in the email, unfortunately my grandfather's passed away. We actually expected this to happen for some time. He's been sick for a couple years, but I need to go down and fulfill some familiar obligations, but didn't want to get so behind on class that you weren't going to get the content you were paying for when you signed up for Marketing 300. So I'm going to go ahead and post lectures for Monday's class and Wednesday's class online. It's going to be a little bit awkward, not even as entertaining as when I'm in person. The last couple of weeks of lectures haven't been that entertaining to begin with, but it's going to be a little bit dry, not a lot of opportunity obviously for questions back and forth when I'm talking to a camera in an office. So to facilitate this process, you need to go up on Blackboard and pop the PowerPoint presentation up on your computer or someplace where you can follow it printed out. So while you're listening to this, you can go ahead and go through the PowerPoint. So what I'm going to do in this first post is get through the retailing lecture. There's not that much left to talk about there. I have those retailing notes up on my laptop on another computer, so I'm looking at them right now while I do this lecture. Right now, I'm on slide number 17, differences in retailing in different nations. And what I want to talk about is just touch on a couple of the small international marketing components, the way international business is changing this retailing process. So the first issue is that new ideas spread, that innovations in retailing, innovations in retailing that are successful in one context will then spread to other contexts. There are large international retailers. Some of these are American. Walmart, for example, has been fairly successful in Latin America, more limited success in East Asia and in Europe, been pretty aggressive in trying to move into the Chinese market. There are other competitors, there are retailers out of Europe, other places that have also successfully spread, and then something that may be successful in a Walmart store, for example, and China is something that they can then transfer back to the United States. The ideas, exposures to different markets can lead to competitive advantage, like we've touched on in class before. Additionally, mass marketing requires mass markets. And for retailers and for the producers, manufacturers of consumer goods in general, there are global mass markets. We touched on this also in class before, but just the idea that there are consumers that are buying similar products across the world, and there are retailers that are focused on a specific segment that are successful globally. 7-Eleven is a classic example of this. 7-Eleven was the first convenience store, the first store really focused on that segment, and was highly successful, started in Dallas, and was highly successful, and actually now is owned by a Japanese firm. And there are more 7-Elevens outside the United States than in the United States, and quite successful in East Asia. My wife jokes that there is a 7-Eleven on every other block in Taiwan. That retailer has found a mass market, a segment that's global, convenience, some of the things that retailer is focusing on in terms of the segment of consumers they're targeting are global in scope, so they're able to successfully go global. One second, I have the tracking on this, and I'm pretty sure the face tracking is making the camera move all the time, and it's not working very well since I'm standing in the middle, sitting in the middle and not moving much, except when I wildly gesticulate. It should follow me okay this way. Let me zoom in. Okay, I can't zoom anymore. Never mind. So, and then some countries block change. Some countries limit the size of retailers. Walmart in some countries, some European countries, for example, has had issues moving in to those countries because they can't get large enough, just like we talked about with states. The same applies in countries. Applies to countries. And some of this may be environmental, some of this may be protectionism, protecting local retailers, but certain retailers have difficulty moving into certain countries. In fact, Walmart only recently was able to expand into China as aggressively as they wanted to because there were a variety of blocks in terms of ownership, size, various things that were in place in China, requirements with unions, things like that, some of which Walmart was able to compromise on, some of which the Chinese government compromised on, but there were blocks before Walmart could move into China. So let's move on to touch briefly on what wholesalers are. Wholesaling is this activity where you have these wholesalers that sell to retailers, other merchants, business users, but not selling large amounts to final consumers. They're serving as middlemen in this process. What happens with wholesaling, what's happening with wholesaling over time, is that they're becoming more and more sophisticated. Excuse me. And what they're focusing on is producing products, not on chasing orders, and they're becoming more and more adaptive. Wholesalers that are successful in the modern market are willing to adapt and are focused on establishing a relationship and providing value to consumers. They're doing the marketing process just as much as other members of the distribution chain are. So those who have better levels of technology are more willing to adapt, change, meet the needs of their consumers, i.e. the end of the distribution chain, retailers, etc., are those that are most successful. And some of them are not changing, and as a result, you're seeing some wholesalers start to go out of business. The current recession is leading to more of this. And just in a broad sense, new strategies are needed to survive amongst this industry, adaptation of technology, establishment of relationships, while keeping in mind that these relationships can raise ethical concerns. The idea being that the relationships, the brief version, we'll talk about ethics in more detail at the end of the semester, but the brief version is you have unethical activity, bribery, gift giving, things like that drive these wholesaler relationships instead of focusing on efficiency, lowest price, etc. So wholesalers add different value in different ways. So if you look at slide number 19, you'll see different kind of wholesalers. Most wholesalers are merchant wholesalers, followed by agent, and then manufacturer sales brands. They have the highest percentage, the highest cost as a percentage of sales, actually. If you look at the slides, you can see that agent wholesalers actually have the lowest costs. So if I was there, I would use the discussion question prompt that's in the PowerPoint, and I'd ask you, what does this imply? The fact that wholesalers have the highest merchant wholesalers have the highest costs. What does this imply to you? What does this make you think? I'll let you think for a second while I sip on some Diet Mountain Dew in a cup. All right, I have no idea if that was long enough to think. You guys probably, I don't know, updated your Facebook status. I have no idea what you do with 20 seconds if you were bored. Probably didn't think about it, but it means that they're adding more value, that you're getting value from the process, that merchant wholesalers are adding value through relationships, through product lines, through the various components that they bring to the table. They're adding value to this process. And so their costs are up, but those costs are because of additional value that they're bringing. So if we go on to slide number 20, which for whatever reason I can't, you'll see various type of wholesalers. So when you're talking about merchant wholesalers, one of the main distinguishing factors that makes them merchant wholesalers, they own the products. They take out some of the risks. And agent middlemen, agent wholesalers, do not own the products. These are auction companies, brokers, manufacturers, agents, selling agents. There are a variety of components of agent middlemen, but none of them actually own the product. They just serve as an agent to facilitate this transfer of goods. And they get paid for that, but they never take on the risk of ownership. They don't provide that extra value like a merchant wholesaler does. And then how many functions does the wholesaler provide? Agent middlemen provide a very limited scope of functions. A limited function merchant wholesaler, and cash and carry wholesalers, you can see the list, rack jobbers, one of my favorite words in marketing, but a variety of different kinds of limited function merchant wholesalers. They provide extra value, but they're a little cheaper. They don't provide the same level of services you get in a full-service merchant wholesalers. Often these are general merchandise wholesalers or single line or general line wholesalers. Specialty wholesalers also count, but they have a line of goods around a certain specialty line or around a broad list of line. They help facilitate maybe for a whole series of retailers, JCPenney's, Kohl's, Macy's. They all have some overlap in terms of product line. These wholesalers will work within that single line and provide those products, and then provide all this extra value in terms of inventory management, technology, tracking a process, etc.